Collecting matters. Oh yeah. I feel it. Little paper dreams and I just start dealing. Oh yeah. From the corner store pulls to the big glass cases.
Welcome to Collecting Matters, where we talk about all levels of collecting. We speak to new and seasoned collectors. I'm Rakazadi. This is David Stroh. And we believe collecting matters to the culture. Always want to start off with the first hot question is, what do you collect?
Predominantly basketball. I like to go after one-of-ones. I think scarcity is where the money will be long-term with all the inserts they make these days, all the parallels, all the serial numbered cards. I try to go after cards that you see once and you almost have to buy it if you want it. I just think it's a fun way to collect. The chase is one of the best parts, trying to nail down who owns it, where it's at, where it's located. You know, sometimes it takes years. So that's part of the reason I go after those cards.
I love it. And tell me a little bit more about the chase for those who don't really know.
Yeah, so I think it starts, the industry and the hobby is so fragmented is what I would say. You have to go digging on Facebook. You have to go digging on Instagram, eBay, other auction houses. And even at that point, you might not come across the true collector who has the card you're looking for. There are people that stumble across those collections years down the road, years later. From when the card was actually pulled, someone's finally ready to sell off their collection. It gets found in a collection. So I think because of that, it's really difficult to find, and there's no true big database that exists. So that element, the fun chase, the where's this card, who can I get in touch with, who might know, building those relationships, building out the network to go find those cards is, I think, more fun than the actual collecting, personally. So.
Yeah. And where's the main place that you build those relationships? Is it these shows?
Yeah, I would say definitely at shows. You know, some of the guys that I first got in touch with when I got back into cards about 4 or 5 years ago, we actually were talking on Instagram a lot. And I saw them posting cards that I was trying to find and go after. And I just started picking their brains and asking them questions every day. You know, why is that Jordan more than this Jordan? Why is this more, I think hard to find than that card? And you would get a multitude of answers, but those folks on Instagram first, then you meet them at a show, build a relationship, go out to dinner, you see them walking around, you try to get a deal done. Those relationships are, I think, the most important part of the hobby, is just having those connections, having those people around you that want to see you get the card you've been looking for, if it is for your personal collection, or even to help someone else find it for theirs. I think the good folks in this hobby all try to help each other out in that regard. And that's the fun part.
Yeah, and off camera, you talked about an education and getting one. Talk to me about some of the good parts of the education, the bad parts, and then also like how someone who's just getting into this would get educated without having to go some of the same things you did.
Yeah, I think, when I got back into cards about 5 years ago now, I sold a card that I pulled when I was a kid, pulled the LeBron James RPA, got offered cash, held it, said, no, I want to hold it for a while. I think he's going to be good. Ended up selling it for 5 times the amount that I was offered day one when I pulled it, 18 years later. Kind of jump-started me back into it. The education I got was I was getting into breaks, trying to pull cards out of boxes. I think that there's a huge element of that in this hobby still, where you've got kind of the gambling side, right? Then you've got the educational side, is what you're talking about, where you go to shows, you kind of have to do a trial and error. You have to roll with the punches, take losses at times if a player's market is down. It's very volatile if you're, working with newer players in the modern stuff, whereas if you work with older cards, I think those cards just appreciate for the most part, unless the market is in a downturn. So I think what I would recommend for folks is just, trial and error, using things like Card Ladder, going on to find out what the last sales are. One of the best pieces of advice I got in the last 2 years was from actually one of my former colleagues. He said to me, I challenge you not to go look up the sales and see if you can walk around a show and start to understand what the cards are worth without checking what they sold for. And I viewed it as a challenge. I love a challenge. So I started doing it, and I will walk around a show and just off the cusp, hey, this is worth that, in my head. And then I'll fact check myself. And I started to do that slowly to the point where you just kind of understand it when it becomes second nature. You go to so many shows, you do so many deals, you see so many things sell through. So that education, I think, you can get from just hard work and grinding. And also, don't be afraid to ask the people who are doing it. There's a lot of people in this hobby that have mentored me, took me under their wing early. You know, they saw my passion for it, my care for it, my love for it, and they taught me all those inner workings. So that education didn't just come from trial and error. Also, people helped me along the way. And, you know, leaning on them is definitely something I would recommend.
I love that. And when you talk about the passion, like where did the passion start to come in for the hobby? Like, was it always there? I know we talked a little bit about like, you know, your career path. You've done a bunch of different things, like professional golf to recruiting to owning your own business. How did you fit the passion for the hobby within all of that?
Yeah, I think the passion really just came from, I think for me personally, it's the challenge, it's the chase that we talked about. It's the things that, you know, it's a culmination of things. You meet some really awesome people, number one. I had a huge love for sports my whole life. I was always connected to sports from day one. Michael Jordan was my idol, grew up in Chicago. You know, Tiger Woods was another idol of mine as I got into golf because my grandfather was from Scotland, played golf, taught me golf at a young age. So I think watching those athletes, you kind of have an appreciation for them. And as you get older, you want to feel connected to them. So my passion comes from that, I think. And also just going down a journey of, like I told you earlier, the chase of finding these cards. It's really difficult to find some of them. And I think that chase element drives that passion and fuels that passion sometimes. And you're just hoping that you stumble across the card you've been looking for at a show, or one that will be at a show that you haven't seen is there finally, and you've been to, you know, shows for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's sitting right in front of you. And you're like, oh my goodness, I've been looking for this everywhere. So I think that for me is awesome. I think also just the people in this space, like I said, relationships. We all love the same thing. So we're all in a room full of people who love the industry, love the hobby. And I think that transcends everything. And when you surround yourself with good people, like-minded people that all like the same things, passion just kind of exudes from all of those individuals in that room, and you just see it. So if you haven't been to a show, and if you're just getting into cards, I highly recommend checking out a show, walking, trying to find cards you might have been looking for, building those relationships. I think it's really important. So
Yeah. I mean, you can tell how much people care about the hobby in itself and just like the integrity of it. How much have you seen it? It sounds like you've been in it a long time, but how much have you seen it change? Like I know a lot of there's that big idea of collectors, you know, being fans being collectors, and just kind of that like melding of, okay, now this is collecting culture. Bring whatever to the table, and I feel like people will police it. But what have you seen change? What are some things that you know? Yeah, what have you seen change?
yeah, I mean, I collected as a kid, so I think the money that has come into the space has obviously changed. I think there are multiple paths that people take in this space. You've got folks that have a large amount of money that will collect very scarce assets, and they're looking at it as art and appreciation of an asset. I think then you have the everyday dealer who goes around to make money to provide for their families, and they might not be as passionate towards the cards they're picking up because they don't want to get emotionally attached, but they still love the industry, the space, the sports, the TCG stuff, whatever they might be selling. And then I think you got the gamblers, right? So I think what you've seen over the last 5 years since I've gotten in the change is the growth. Like the growth is massive. It's almost impossible to keep up with at this point. That's why you're seeing, you know, I mentioned the fragmentation in the space. I think you're seeing delays as well in terms of output, input at companies. You look at grading companies, you look at auction houses, just the influx of volume that is taking place at these companies. It's scaling so rapidly, and it's like hyper growth. So it's one of those things you can't really keep up with. But scalability also brings in new technologies, new views, new people that are looking to help move it forward. And, you know, that's something I'm obviously going to be trying to do myself. I know there's a lot of other companies, a lot of individuals doing the same thing. It's really cool to see because it is kind of in a prehistoric age still. It's a lot of manual labor, a lot of manual work, a lot of manual data. So I think you're going to see in the next 5 years that sped up in the right way, and the scalability will come, which then will also help the growth and more people will get involved. That's just what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think we're in the age of, like gambling is definitely something just in the US that's expanding. Then you've got tech, AI, all of this, like, this big sweeping sort of change. And you referenced it a little bit when you talk about like the gambling aspect. Would you mind expanding on that? And for those that do know and those that don't know, like just even stories where you've experienced it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I got back in because of gambling, right? Like I was getting into breaks, I was opening up boxes and trying to get teams on Whatnot, over on Blez, over on these websites that you can get in, get a team, any card that comes out from that, like any player from that team, you get sent to you in the mail. I think one of the main things I paid attention to when I got back in was what were the bigger players in the space doing. And Fanatics, for instance, hired executives over from DraftKings and FanDuel. So to me, it just said, okay, we're going to find the gamblers, we're going to bring over the users from that space into this hobby. I think where the hobby has a chance to kind of transcend almost the gambling ring that exists within sports betting, parlaying, is the fact that you get some money back, right? Like there's almost a guarantee. If you're opening up a repack, let's say, you spend $100, you're guaranteed to get at least a portion of it back. Whereas in gambling, it's an all or nothing thing unless you cash out in the middle of your bet. So I think you're going to see more people taking chances within the space. I think you're going to see people viewing the gambling side of this hobby as an avenue to go down to start a business, to facilitate business. And I think there's very intricate, interesting ways you can go about it to kind of curate the population that you need in the masses, and I think it will bleed into those other avenues of like the daily fantasy lineups. I think you'll see a huge expansion from what Fanatics wants to do in other companies in the space. One of the companies that I think will start to get involved more is eBay. Truthfully, I think they're going to find a way. They have so much data. They have so much access to data. I think they can find a way to find those gamblers within their data sets and build out their own type of gambling within the collectible space in general. I think Fanatics is doing a really good job at it, but they're making it all about the hobby. They're making it about the sports fans, the TCG fans, like the passionate people. So yeah, that's kind of what I've seen. I think that it will keep growing in that avenue. At the end of the day, holding an asset in any regard is a gamble, right? So like any space, whether it's a stock, whether it's a home, whether it's a card, whether it's, a jersey that's signed, a player that doesn't play anymore, everything's a gamble. Any market can go up or down. So I think that people are starting to see that within the space too, but it's giving them a connection to things that they love. And I think that nostalgic element that we all experience when we hold a Pokemon card. I know I collected Pokemon cards as a kid. It's like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of when I was 10. You kind of get goosebumps. I know I'm getting them right now because like I'm just talking about it, but it's like, I remember that feeling when I pulled this Charizard out of a pack when I was 10. Even the players that used to love, like one of them that I loved is Gilbert Arenas, one of my favorite players. One of my buddies showed me a Gilbert Arenas Superfractor 1/1 the other day. And like I said, trying to find those cards. But you find that passion through that, and it's like, gosh, I want that card. It's that nostalgic hit. And then I think because they're tying it to sports and things that we used to watch, like anime shows, games that we used to play, you're seeing people okay with gambling on it because it could be something that's nostalgic and they're still getting something in return too. So it's not a all or nothing. It's I'm still going to get a piece of something. And then that allows you to go try to move it, trade it, you meet more people. So I think it's a really good thing just in general. Like gambling, you sit at home most of the time from your phone these days. You don't really talk to people other than your friends unless you hit the parlay you're trying to hit. I think with cards and just the hobby in general, you buy something, you gamble on it, you go to a show, you try to trade it, you try to move it, you try to sell it, you build relationships. I think that element will transcend. That's why I think it will kind of fall over. I look at like the gambling from FanDuel and just casinos in general and stuff. I think those users will fall into this, but it'll allow people, like-minded people, to build those relationships even more too.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk about community, and I know we even talked about like self-policing in some of our last our last conversations. Where are these communities? And I know you said they were fragmented earlier, where just the whole hobby is, but through that fragmentation, like you have your sports guys, you've got your, TCG, Magic, all that. Is there somewhere for everybody to find some sort of like community in the hobby?
100%. I think that's what I love most about it is you go to a show like this one here, the Dallas Card Show, you've got vintage sellers, you've got TCG sellers, you've got people that just have basketball in their case, you have people that have baseball, basketball, football, hockey, all of the above, every category you can think of. So I think within that, you kind of gravitate, and this is why I recommend everyone goes to a show and just walks, because you'll walk up to someone's showcase and you will see what they have. And if it's something you appreciate and something you like, you will instantly have a connection with that person. It's very easy to have a conversation at that point, even if a deal doesn't get done, even if the prices are too high or you're too high on your own prices trying to sell to them, you still build a relationship with someone who also has a similar interest. So I think that element of the hobby does kind of just take place naturally because of what people are buying and what they're selling, and it kind of gravitates you towards your group of folks in your network. And I think because there's so many ways you can collect, trade, flip, sell, whatever you want to call it, you see people go around shows and they're looking for one specific thing. And there's others who don't care. They just want to make money, right? Then there's others who are, I know baseball really well. I'm going to focus on just baseball. Then you get people that are, hey, I know vintage baseball from, early 1900s to mid 50s, 1950s. That's the only thing I'll buy. So there's a place in the hobby for everyone, I think, is the beauty of it. You can do the modern stuff, you can do the ultra modern stuff, you can do the 90s stuff, you can do the vintage stuff, TCG. There's so many different categories you can fall into. So
yeah, I love it. And like we talked about earlier, you're obviously really busy building your own thing.
Yeah.
Do you have time to collect things now? What have you collected recently?
Yeah, I've been picking up some cards that I just think long-term holds for me. I think anyone who tells you that they're a true collector will say everything has a price, right? I think we can all agree on that. But some of the cards that I've picked up for myself would be hard to pry from my hands. Not going to say that I'll collect them forever and I will never move them. I hope to one day get to that point, and hopefully money isn't an issue later in my life, and I can just go after whatever I want and never have to move it, so I can appreciate it for what it is. Recently, I did pick up this card. It's a Steph Curry Topps Chrome glass canvas, 1 of 1. So this is the new Topps Chrome product that just came out. It's the first licensed Topps Chrome since 2009. This card specifically is, I think, one of the better inserts. It's got an action pose, it's got a portrait, it's got a border, it's obviously a superfractor. So it's got kind of, it's a 1 of 1. So to me, it kind of checks all the bells and whistles of what a true collector looks for in a card. I thought it was the prettiest insert in the entire product. I think it will have long-term collectability because there's only a 1 of 1 and then a base card. So it's one that I just think is, again, this would be hard to pry from my hands because I got it for what I think is cheap, for what I think it could be worth one day. And I also was looking to get a nice Stephen Curry for my collection. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. That's my first really good look at it. So that's sick.
Yeah.
Man, well, I appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to share? How can people find you?
My Instagram is DaveOPulls. Working on something right now. Obviously, keep a lookout. We will let you know when we all launch. But yeah, appreciate your time too, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Collecting matters.